Hi, this is Jonathan Lunger from hologramchat.com, and I'm pleased to have my friend Joanie McMahon with us today. Joanie has gotten a doctorate in psychology, and she's an expert teacher on the law of attraction and also an internet marketer. Thanks for being here, Joanie. How are you doing today?
I'm just doing great. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for having me. I appreciate it.
Well,
Good to be here.
It's great to have you here.
Thank
So
you.
today's topic we were going to address was the addiction that people have. And what's your perspective on that complex topic?
Well, it's a pretty huge issue in our culture, isn't it? We've got whole institutions that are created just for specific addictions, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, and other, gambling addictions. And sometimes people see these as separate things, and perhaps they are separate in terms of what a person is addicted to, but really they all have a lot of commonality. So addictions are really a person's attempt to try to feel better, because inherently we are freedom-seeking beings who know that well-being is our nature. That's who we really are, as happy and joyful beings. And whenever we're not feeling that way, we have negative emotion and negative patterns of behavior that tell us we're going the wrong way towards our own happiness. But most people don't understand this internal emotional guidance system. They don't understand the purpose of our emotions and what they tell us. And they don't have the skills to move from a negative emotion into a positive emotion and stay there for very long. So because everybody has this natural inclination to want to feel good, to want to be happy, they will take on and do things that they think will make them happy. And I can certainly give you some examples of, there's a lot of teenagers that I've worked in the school system with teenagers and at the university level with adults. And with teenagers in high school, starting in about grade 9, even younger, but certainly grade 9 is the time that it really starts to begin. Students have access to drugs on the street. And in the schools that I've been in, at one point, I remember a school that I was in a few years ago, we looked at our student population. It was a small enough school that we could do this. And 75% of our high school students were smoking marijuana on a regular basis. They would start their day by smoking, and many of them would go outside at lunch to smoke. And it was just a regular part of their day. And somehow they found the money to do that. I'm guessing most of their parents didn't know about that, but I have no idea, to be honest, because I worked with some of them, but certainly not all of them. But the thing about, there's some addictions that are worse than others. Marijuana tends to lull you out. And so when you're in a school, and most students don't really want to be in school, I'd say there's about 20% that really find value there. So there's 80% of students who are sitting there listening to information that they don't want to learn, that it's not of interest to them. It's forced on them. They have to be there. And it's almost unbearable for many students. And they will just smoke marijuana, and the school system likes it when you're quiet, as opposed to rambunctious. Yeah. So if you're sitting there and you're looking like you're listening, but you're really blissed out on marijuana, that's really a coping mechanism to stay in that environment, because for many kids, it's very painful, especially since the dawn of the internet, because kids, there's nothing that's more potent than the internet. It has changed the game of life for everybody. There's probably very few people that don't at one time or other in a day Google something that they're looking for, you know.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of people's life, and leading edge ideas are on the internet. People can watch music, and there's so many things on the internet that's of interest to people. And our students know that, our young people know that. And so that's why they are drawn to the internet. It's where all the action is. It's where a lot of really great things are happening. And I'd say probably most parents don't understand that because, you know, they tend, in our generation, you know, we tended to, you know, we didn't spend that kind of time in front of the internet. We did other things. And so we tend to hold the value that it's better not to. But really, our kids know what's best for them. So anyway, just back to the addiction of, you know, marijuana in high school. That's where a lot of addiction begins. Because of our natural inclination to be happy. And most people aren't. Many people are raised in families where really the parents don't know how to take care of their inner world. And, you know, often it takes a very serious call, like a health issue, a tumor, a deep depression, something like that, you know, serious issues with some part of your body, to recognize that there's something wrong in your world, you know, because those physical manifestations or, you know, physical symptoms are our body's way of letting us know that there's something wrong. And so it takes so many of us a really long time to recognize that we even need help. So many of us are so out of alignment that with who we really are, we're not feeling good most of the time, that we get these physical symptoms and we don't realize until it's very serious that, oh, gee, you know, there's something wrong. But, so I just make that point in this video about addictions because that's the extent to people get so used to feeling bad that they think it's almost normal. In fact, being happy seems abnormal. It seems odd, you know, because we haven't been practiced into it, you know. Mm-hmm. But yet at a very deep level, we all know that freedom, inner freedom, and is what's most important. And so a person who's addicted is actually they're a much healthier person than someone that spends their life complaining and worrying and thinking about all the terrible things that can happen to them. Because a person who's addicted to something understands that, you know, they're reaching for something to help them feel better. They're more in tune with a person who's just consistently in a negative place. So it's kind of hard to swallow the idea that a cocaine addict, for instance, would be in a healthier place because they know they're not feeling good. They're reaching for cocaine to feel better. They're in a healthier place than someone who's just in a permanent state of negative spiraling thinking, you know? Yeah. So, and that really goes for any addiction. Cocaine, alcohol addiction. People spend many, many dollars stocking up on alcohol in their home so that they can have it at any time they want. And it certainly is a way to temporarily feel better. All of us have had wine or beer or whatever people drink. Okay. And it gives you an immediate sense of feeling better. But when it gets to the point where we depend on that to feel better, and we're using that to medicate ourselves over a long period of time, that's when it starts to do a lot of damage. And ultimately, you know, it's not a very it's not the way we want to feel better. We want to feel better naturally, So I don't know very many people that haven't had some kind of addiction. It could even be addiction to shopping, spending money, shopping, doing anything where you just feel this absolute compulsion to do it because you think it'll make you feel better. I can remember when my husband died, and I didn't really understand about the death process. I feel like I'm a much more evolved person in that whole topic, but at the time of his death, I was heartbroken, and I was completely stressed out because he had been sick for about 4 years, and I was working. I had a very high-powered job at a university at that time, and I was just fried. This is the word I could use. I was so stressed out. His health was not good. We were doing everything we could to help him, and I was in this in this job. So by the time he actually did transition, I was not only heartbroken, but I was completely exhausted. And over the next few years, as I was trying to come to grips with that, because we had been together for many years, I went through a series of addictive behaviors that I tried to do to make myself feel better. So one of them was spending money. I kept thinking, I just would spend money on things that I normally would not have spent money on. But it was just this desperate attempt to feel better. I kept thinking that I would feel better after. And, sometimes when you buy something, you do get you do feel better temporarily, right? Yeah. For the afternoon or the next day or something. Yeah. But that ultimately is not what brings us happiness. Yeah. All those beautiful things, as wonderful as they are. I'm not against material things. I love them. I have many beautiful things. But when we think that that's our source of happiness, that's what gets us into trouble. Yeah. And then medication. That's the other thing with me. What happened is that I just was feeling so terrible that I was on antidepressants and sleeping pills, and then I started having pain symptoms, so I was on painkillers, and all of those were ways that doctors, I guess, said that I would feel better. And I did temporarily. I'm not against medication. I think there's a place for it because, it kept me alive, I guess, is what I would say. But it certainly didn't make me happy. Yeah. It stopped the obsessive, depressive thoughts. So, another addiction that I have had is an addiction to, but I took all those medications to try to feel better. I'm only using myself as an example because really we learn from experience. And I think everybody has examples that they could talk about, when they really think about it. Another pattern of behavior that I developed just trying to feel better was watching movies. I would just watch tons and tons and tons of good feeling movies because my thoughts were so terrible. I had not experienced that kind of thinking before. I didn't really know what a depression felt like before. And I had never experienced those kind of thoughts. I didn't even have access to those kind of thoughts before because when you're happy, you don't have those kind of thoughts, Yeah. So the kind of thoughts that depressed people have. So I just would watch movies, and honestly, while I was watching the movie for 2 hours, I would feel better. It was a really great coping mechanism for me. I spent a lot of time doing it because I just didn't have another way to feel better. I didn't have the skills. And you know what? I was trained at the doctorate level in psychology. It's very, in some ways, I'm glad I went through that, because I can see how our schools of psychology, they really don't understand about inner wellness. I can't. Most of my courses were on identifying symptoms, so knowing what it looked like if someone was schizophrenic or depressed, and medications, and the social, the history of psychology and stuff like that. But there was very little on how to actually make people feel better permanently and help them understand what their guidance system, their inner guidance system, really is about. And so if we can look at our guidance system as this is who we really are, this is who we are now in our physical body, and we have a higher self, so to speak, the very best version of ourself. When we're joyful and happy, that's the highest version of ourselves. We're in tune with how the universe or God or whatever, however you see that, sees us. If the universe is always saying to us, we love you, you're adorable, come this way, we know how to help you. But most people don't know the call of source energy. I call that source energy. They don't. You can't really hear it when you're in a negative place, because you're so stuck in negative thought. And so, that's where I was. So I think, wow, if somebody who has a doctorate degree in psychology, and who really, I was so committed to my health. I ate everything that was great. I exercised. I used to be an athlete, and I've always exercised. It's always been a part of my life. And so someone with a doctorate degree eats healthy and exercises on a regular basis. If they don't know how to help themselves, I have no idea how the average person is managing, and I think not very well, So I'll just continue with my story for a little bit, because it's such a good example of, that I never stopped trying to feel better, ever. And there was a point where I got to the point, because it was taking so long for me to feel better. Because when someone dies that you really love, and you don't have a larger, more expanded understanding of death, what you want can never come back. My husband will never be back in physical form as it was. So, so what I wanted, what I desired, was for him to be back. It could never happen. So I was in a state of complete depression. Because I actually had been used to getting most everything I wanted. That's the way life is supposed to be. You can get everything you want. But because I had such a distorted understanding of death, it took me a long while. So when I was in this depression, my thoughts got worse and worse and worse. And I kept trying to find help, and I saw many doctors, many people actually, and finally my thoughts got to a place where I thought, you know what, I don't think I'm ever going to feel better. And because I had this, because I knew that happiness was something that I could have, I had it, and I didn't know how to get there, and I had been trying and trying. I thought, well, it's better to just leave the planet. I'd rather die than live like this. I don't want to live like this. I was not living up to my potential. I just felt so inadequate, really. I just felt like I didn't know how to get out of this, and I didn't want to stay in it. It just was not an option. So my thoughts turned to suicidal thoughts, which were very odd. I mean, in some ways, I'm so glad I went through this experience because I can live to talk about it. The thoughts are just so terrible. How you could possibly put yourself in front of a train and not just get disabled, but make sure you totally died. I mean, that's a pretty, terrible place to be. But that was the level of some of my thoughts. Because if I tried this, I wanted to be successful. Oh dear. So anyway, there was just so many things I did during that period that were coping mechanisms to try to feel better. So I finally did come out of it, and I'll talk about how after. But really, it's just me going on a little bit about all addictions. That's without exception, are about people who are trying to feel better. And then, eventually they become physically addicted to, say, cocaine or alcohol or marijuana or whatever, and it becomes a part of your life. But really, a physical addiction can actually leave your body within 3 days. If you are off cocaine or marijuana for 3 days, or alcohol for 3 days, or coffee for 3 days, it will leave your system. So it's not the physical addiction, it's the psychological addiction that people get hooked on, right? So, but I can't think of it, gambling, the same thing. People are desperately spending money thinking that if they win some, they're going to feel happier. But a lot of that behavior is anxious behavior. It's like anxiety-ridden behavior to try to feel better. The gambler, the shopper, the person that drinks too much, the person that's on cocaine, on marijuana, all of it's about that. What are some other addictions? There's patterns of behavior that people get addicted to.
Emotions. I think some people get addicted to having a complex, like thinking they deserve more, or I think that those are kind of similar in that even if a person doesn't consume anything, like they don't drink and they don't have caffeine, they can still be addicted to thinking that their way is the only way.
Yes, that's a really good point. Absolutely. There's 9 patterns of behavior that I talk about. One of them is what you've just said, where people get addicted to believing they're right and everybody else is wrong. And you're right, absolutely right. So there's a whole pile of patterns of behavior that people get stuck in, where they over and over and over and over again think thoughts that really don't make them happy. They're all patterns of behavior that are out of alignment with our true self. Our true selves are easygoing and relaxed and fun and happy and joyful and smart. And we know when to act. Our timing is just right. We know when to act because we can feel it come from within, the best time to act on anything. That's another big addiction in this culture, is frivolous acting, just being busy all the time. And the internet thing, where people are just constantly on the internet, and you and I are both in business, and just like 24/7 at your computer. It's just this addiction to not even important action lots of the time. It's just and it's not action that makes you feel good. Right. It's sort of unbalanced. It's a bit, it's a bit like anything. You're just working to find a way to break through to feel better. Really, that's what it's all about. And so I think that things are really, it's such a wonderful time to be alive, because it's an age of consciousness. It's an age of people really realizing that inner wellness is where it's at. It's totally the name of our purpose on life. That's what we're here for, is to feel good and to be happy and relaxed and enjoy our friends and our business associates and our families and nature. And I mean, there's so much that's been given to us that doesn't even cost a cent. You know, the sunshine, the blue sky, the ocean, you know,
Yeah.
or the rivers. It's just so abundant. Clarity, you know, the clarity that we have when we feel good. You know, most people have probably had the experience of just feeling so good on a project and everything's flowed nicely. Well, that's the way life is supposed to be, you know. And
Exactly.
so, while there are a lot of people on addictions, in addictive behaviors, you know, I never worry about that. It's not something that I fret about. Those are people that are trying to feel better. And I totally get that they're going to find a way, you know. They're searching.
Mm-hmm.
And they may not find it today when they're drinking their 5th glass of whiskey or something, whatever, you know.
Right.
But they're, you know, the time of awakening for everybody is when people are ready. So, you know, like, and for myself, what ended up happening was I so wanted to get better, but I had literally given up. I had no more ideas, none. And I had access to some of the best minds in the world, really. I had read all the great books. I had the best doctors. I had enough financial resources to get the best of what I needed, but none of it helped me. And so finally, I was seeing a counselor that someone had recommended, and she gave me a book. It's called The Journey by Brandon Bays. And Brandon Bays used to work for Tony Robbins. She's a beautiful soul, a beautiful woman who was diagnosed with a very large tumor in her belly at a very young age. And she was stunned when that tumor happened. That's the other thing, is that everybody's lack of feeling good manifests in a different way. None of us are the same. But a tumor, depression, sore feet, asthma, anxiety, unhealthy patterns of behavior, they're really all the same thing. They're just our body's response to negative emotion, sustained negative emotion in the body. And what happened with Brandon was she too wanted to get well so badly. Her doctors just wanted to take out the tumor. But Brandon was very wise. She knew that just removing a tumor without getting to the source of the problem, without cleaning up your energy, is sort of the language in the field. You know, the disease is just going to manifest in another way. It just comes back. You can't cut out something and then expect to feel better for long because you haven't done the inner work that's needed. So Brandon got led to this work that she now does and wrote about in that book, The Journey. And she came upon the knowledge that's now becoming more known. It hasn't been allowed to surface very high because our medical industry is very strong and it's run by the drug companies.
Yeah.
And they would lose a lot of business if people found out how to heal themselves without taking their medications. So, but that's a whole other topic and not one that I want to really talk about much, but it's an issue of why things get suppressed.
Yeah.
Even the knowledge that I learned in my psychology class, a lot of that is mandated because drug companies give money to universities. Yeah. And they often will insist on, well, that's why they part of having the power to mandate curriculum is something that happens. So anyway, what Brandon's book is about is it's the science of what happens when something negative happens to us and we don't know how to deal with it. So, so what happened for her is she got access to an old memory, and the cell receptors had shut down when this event happened in her life. It was an event where she witnessed violence in her childhood. And she was so shocked by it and didn't have any skills to know how to properly deal with it. And that event got stored in the body as a cell memory. The cell receptor literally closes and no longer functions healthily. And so what happened is that that cell memory manifested as a cancer tumor, a football-sized cancer tumor, when she was in her early 40s. And when she got access to that cell memory through the work that she now has discovered, and she was able to process it in a healthy way, that tumor was gone in 6 weeks.
That's amazing.
And it is amazing. And when I read that book, because psychology really is considered a science, and I really was so intelligent in terms of knowing wellness. As soon as I read that book, I knew for sure that was what was that was what was holding my depression in place. That was the missing piece that I just didn't have access to. And the very interesting thing, this is just an aside, but it's all connected. I'm just laying a groundwork here to bring it back to addictions. But when my husband was dying, he even told me the memories from his childhood that kept coming up while he was trying to get well, because he desperately wanted to get healthy. He didn't want to leave. He didn't want to die. And he told me the memories. I knew the memories. They were terrible childhood memories. He had had a difficult time as a child, and I won't get into that, but he said, he asked me several times, help me with this, because they keep coming up. I don't know what to do about them, And so a few days, it wasn't that long before he died, where we spent a whole day trying to figure out what to do with these memories that kept coming up, because he knew in his heart that this was the cause of his cancer. He knew it. He could feel it. He just had access to that knowledge, but we didn't have the skills. So it's so interesting to me that I would have had that experience with him, and I'm now doing this work. Really his death has led me to the work that I do now. So after I read the book, I immediately got in touch with the practitioner in my town, and I went to her, and within 5 sessions, that depression of 5 years, where I had seen a therapist every week for 5 years, lifted. And all the and a lot of the addictive behavior, the addiction to watching movies, and I let go of medication after 5 sessions. I didn't need them. And the cell memory that I cleared was one of being in the womb. That one memory. And I actually even knew it, but because I was aware of it. I knew that memory, I knew that was a troublesome memory. I knew about my mother's experience having a baby. She didn't want a child. And, but I didn't know what to do about it, right? So I was so excited after I had the first session, and honestly, by the 5th session, I had already worked with probably, 40 people, helping them clean stuff up that I couldn't help them with. And because most therapy is not very effective. When you talk on and on about how awful you're feeling, and it's just sort of, that makes it worse, actually. Yeah. So I got trained immediately. I got trained in journey work at the very advanced level. It's the only thing I do and I combine it with law of attraction teachings about knowing what your emotions are about, and that we all have 2 points of relativity, who we really are and who we are being. Yeah. And our constant goal is to be who we really are, which is this loving, joyful being. And that's the only relationship in anybody's life that's most important. When you take care of that relationship and you're constantly moving towards source energy or God or the universe, everything else falls into place. That's what attracts all the good things to you. So when I'm working with people, I always say that, no child or no spouse or no friend is more important than the key relationship between you and you, the bigger you. And so it takes a lot of us a long time to get there. But when I'm working with people that have addictions, I always say, good for you for finding a way to feel better. I never see it as a bad thing. And if I'm working with a teenager or a child, I always reassure the parent that it's not a bad thing. Your child is really healthy. They're trying to feel better by doing this, by taking this. So, and there's so many wonderful things happening now on the planet. The teachings of Abraham, of the law of attraction, about how the universe really works, that it's an attraction-based universe, and that the reason negative things happen to us, any negative thing, whether it's our health or relationships or financial issues, it's because of our sustained patterns of thinking that are attached to negative emotion. It's really sloppy thinking, but that's kind of a judgmental way to, I guess, to say sloppy thinking. It's as though we're all not trying our best. We are, but it is really sloppy thinking. Once you understand the law of attraction and you understand the power of our thoughts, I honestly don't think we have any idea how powerful we are. We're just getting a taste of it now on the planet. People are doing absolutely remarkable things because of technology, because of our evolution as a species. It's the age of awakening. So really, and there is not much more to say about addictions except that it is everybody's attempt to feel good, to feel better. And that's a really healthy thing. And it gets unhealthy when it's on and on and on and on for years. But, once people have the skills, I'm so passionate about teaching people these very simple skills of journey work. They're not difficult, and I don't really even understand why people, are so resistant to it, because I guess it's because I'm so health conscious. It's been such a big part of my life to know that feeling good is important, is where it's at. And it helps you really understand your emotions to do journey work, because it finds those hidden emotions that sometimes we don't even know we have, that are creating some kind of distress, So, but since I've lifted my depression, I have had other patterns of things that I've cleaned up too. I've gotten to the root cause of them. And it's always the cell, an old time cell memory, that raises its head. And if you can help somebody, I always feel so great when I can help somebody clean up a pattern of behavior that they've been doing for 2 decades in a session. And that's literally how fast it can happen. it's unbelievable. You know, I was working with a woman not long ago, and she was addicted to helping people. She could not stop helping people, even when she didn't want to, and she was getting very sick doing it. And in one session with her, she got to the root source of where that pattern of behavior got set up in a memory that she had, and she was able to process it cleanly and carefully with journey work. And she's never done that behavior since. Never. I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, like, why this work is not known throughout the entire planet is it's a mystery to me, because it's, you know, there's pockets of people that know it. In South Africa, journey work is used in every school there, in most schools there. I'm not sure about every school, but whole school districts have taken it on. And a teacher can literally process a whole class of kids and help them keep into, you know, help them clean up whatever negative thing might have happened in the last week, or, you know, whatever, so that they're always coming from this joyous place of love, you know. Yeah. So, and kids are they're so eager to feel good, you know. They're not holding a lot of stuff, you know. Yeah. So I don't know if I've covered everything with addiction. Can you think of anything else, Jonathan?
I really appreciate and like what you said. One thing I thought of during it was a couple wise friends of mine talked about the concept of moderation, you know, versus like when people are really addicted versus using moderation. I think most people find more joy in moderation, whereas like two different sides of the seesaw, and to have more balance and more moderation. And also like the layers, like when you shared the journey work with me, after I processed one emotion and memory, I'd notice a new one would be underneath it, and I never would have been able to get to it if I hadn't taken the top layer off first. And so I think it's really helpful, and it's a mystery why more people don't know about it to me too.
Yeah, it hasn't. I think in North America, because the medical system is so entrenched with the drug companies, that there's been a lot of resistance to new stuff. Certainly, even resistance in the schools I've worked in. You know, like it's interesting, but you know what? You can't keep a good thing down. Yeah. It certainly hasn't stopped me from, you know, I can tell within 5 minutes of talking to somebody, you know, if they've got something present, you know. The other thing about the moderation thing is that everybody knows within their heart whether that glass of wine is because they're just having an enjoyable meal, or whether it's because they are trying to dull the edge of crankiness. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Like, people will medicate with a glass of wine because they're feeling so edgy, they'll say. Right. But that's a very different state than someone that's just totally enjoying their life and having a glass of wine. You understand what I'm saying? Definitely. Both could be moderation, but it's the feeling behind it. Yeah. That's the key. That's the key. So I know the difference because I've done it myself. You know, I'm just feeling so tense. Oh, I just want to have a glass of wine, and that relieves temporarily that tension. But if I'm just having a really great time and I'm enjoying a glass of wine, it's a very different feeling, very different experience, you know?
Yeah, like choosing it versus I have to have it, you know, like it is definitely a different vibration.
Exactly. It's all about energy. It's all about your vibration. The healthier you get and the more you find a way, you know, journey work, there must be other ways that people use to get better, because there's lots of people getting well on the planet. I don't know all of them, But I lost my train of thought there. What was I saying?
You talked about you don't know a lot of people who are like that. The vibrations, I think I kind of lost it also, but...
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I've lost my train of thinking there. But it is all about energy. It's all about vibration. Everything. You know, we're feeling energetic mechanisms. And most of us is really non-physical. This is a very small part of us that's here in physical form, as you know.
Yeah.
I'm talking to somebody that knows about this, you know, but for our listeners, that we've come from this vast expanse of non-physical energy that we all have access to. When I do journey work, I get into this space of understanding the vastness of the energy that I'm a part of. We're all a part of. We're all one, and that's what that term means, is this infinite intelligence that we can access.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, yeah, I think that's all I can think of to say on that, but you understand what I'm saying about vibration and energy.
Definitely.
It's just a term, vibration is just a term to represent our emotional state.
Yeah.
Happy is a high vibration, depressed is a low vibration.
Yeah.
And I certainly know the difference now because of my own experience. So, you know, but that's what that is. Everything is about energy. And, I was going to say about the medical industry that they don't really know that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so surprised at how eager and quickly my doctor was willing to give me all kinds of medication. Because honestly, he didn't know how to help me. And I don't think it was because he was an awful man. He was he wanted my best, you know.
Yeah.
But I wasn't getting better, and he was using the tools he had, which was medication, to see if he could help me feel better. But it actually did make me feel worse, you know. It wasn't good for me. It felt so foreign in my body to have these chemicals there, and you know, all the side effects. Because I've studied about drugs in my training, I know I've seen all the side effects that you can have from an antidepressant drug. It's 4 pages of side effects and a couple of paragraphs of what the benefits it might do for you.
Yeah.
They don't know what these chemicals do to us. None of these people do.
Right.
They just put them in the market, and they make huge sums of money for many people. So it's an economic thing, I think.
Yeah.
You know, so that's okay. You know what? Good always wins. It's always going to bend. You know, people are strong. They're powerful. You know, one person that's feeling happy is more powerful than 10,000 people that are not, because they can access the resources of source energy. That's where our power is. So I feel so confident, so happy. I don't worry about people that are addicted. I help them if they come to me, for sure. Give them the skills to lift their addiction. But I know that they're pretty darn healthy because they're trying to get better. Yeah. You know, so it makes me, you know, my experience in schools is, you know, when I discovered that 80% of my high school students that I was seeing is on marijuana, I thought, wow, you know, these kids are really giving us a message, you know, and they were all just sitting in class and looking like they were listening, you know, and many of the students that I talked to when I was counseling them, they said, you know, there was not one teacher that noticed, not one. Because when you're on marijuana, you can look like you're interested, but really be blissed out, you know, in a classroom. So they were pretty clever. You know, I thought that was clever coping, really. I don't mean that really, but you understand what I'm saying. They were genuinely trying to get through this school experience that they hadn't chosen. Yeah. And it was pretty hard for them to sit there all the time. So I hope I've brought some clarity to this area of addictions. I don't see it as the huge issue that many people see it, because I know that the solutions are pretty simple when people are ready, So that gives me so much hope. I just feel so happy that these tools are on the planet today. They weren't on the planet. I don't think they were on the planet when my husband was dying. Journey work wasn't, I don't think. It's relatively new. So, man, I'm so excited that, more and more people will live joyful lives,
Yeah.
Not sick, not in sickness, and not in feeling bad most of the time. That's really so exciting to me.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Joanie. And viewers, go to JoanieMcMahon.com and you can check out her books and products, and definitely get on her email list for it's, I believe, the 17. Well, you'll see when you get in there, but I don't want to give it away, but it's definitely my favorite list to be on, and it's been a real pleasure.
You're talking about my free online course?
Yes.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
know if you wanted me to share about how many episodes it has. And,
oh, yeah, sure. It's a 17-day free online course. It's you can access it at JoanieMcMahon.com. I'm happy to share that. It's information I would have paid $1 million for, because it got me better,
Yeah, it's priceless.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan. I'm so glad that you've benefited from it too.
No problem. All right. Well, you have a wonderful day, and thanks again.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm so happy to be with you.
Happy
Take care now.
You too. All right, take care.
Bye now.